Hey guys, Sandy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today's sketch is this one, and it is a big hunky sketch with a big title. Now, I decided that this would be a fine time to get some of these random photos from our Castle Air Museum trip that really didn't go on a page. I could put them here, the random ones together. I've only got a few more photos to finish this album and it'll be complete. And then I thought, you know what, these, instead of cutting down my pattern paper, I could use these and perhaps use up some of my 4x6 cards. So let's see what I can do. All right, so I went into my stash and I got this blue paper, and this is from Close to My Heart. I also pulled out this kind of khaki paper that is from Chatterbox. Do you guys remember Chatterbox? Scrapbook walls. And my original plan was to use that khaki colored paper as the kind of puffy, scallopy line. I ended up doing something else and completely forgot about that paper. Sometimes that is a struggle for me. I forget about the things that I've pulled out, but you know, sometimes you find better things. So I am trimming down my photos to 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And that is because I am not just going to put the photos straight down on my paper. I have decided that I'm going to mat them. Now I am using up a good amount of 4x6 cards here, and I'm just trimming them down so that they work for me. So I want that blue color, so I'm going to go ahead and use that, and each of these are going to be trimmed down to 4x4. Now some of them I have to trim both edges because they have the dreaded rounded corners. And I actually cut one more than I need to, and I end up not using this one, and this one's just a regular old white grid. Now I was thinking about trimming down this transparency one. That one didn't get used either, so sorry, spoiler alert. But it is still out on my desk because I do want to use it. I really like the look of it. Now this card, I decided I didn't want to actually use the card. I just wanted the globe. So I go ahead and fussy cut that bad boy out. Now I could have used circle dies and I would have had a perfectly round globe. However, I did not want to stop my mojo. I was trucking along. So I just really didn't want to stop with that whatsoever. So now I'm just going to take those photos. I'm going to pick 3 random squares, and they end up not being so random. I decided while I was picking the squares, my original plan was randomly grabbing them, but I decided I would have the 3 yellow ones out, and those would be the things that I would do special things to. I would leave the photos just matted, but I would do the special things to these. Now here is a truth moment. This is my up and away stencil from Scrapping Reflections, and as you can see, it has purple all over it, and the purple is still there because I put some Nouveau mousse through it and I never cleaned it off. So I actually clean off the stencil after I apply the Stickles glitter gel to it, and the Nouveau embellishment mousse comes off as well. Now my Stickles glitter gel is getting a little thick, so I am placing it onto this piece of yellow paper, kind of thick, and I am using a metal spatula to do this. I have good enough control that I'm only going to be doing the full airplanes. It's not going to have any partial stenciling on it whatsoever. I'm just making sure to get it thick enough on there and kind of get it evenly across the stencil, so when I lift it up, you'll see airplanes. So I lift it up and voila, we have airplanes. Except for that one little airplane that is right there on the bottom right hand side, and instead of fixing it, I just decide to put that globe there. Now, I definitely could have glued down that globe, but the Stickles glitter gel is still wet. So I figured that would hold down the globe well enough, and I put that off to the side to dry. Now this is the Up in the Clouds stencil. I think maybe it's just In the Clouds. It's pretty terrible that I don't remember the name of my own stencils that I designed. That's kind of terrible, you guys. But it's okay. I am going to use some Brutus Monroe ink, and I'm using a pigment ink so that it's an ink that stays wet a little bit longer than a dye ink. It kind of sits on the top of your paper for a little bit before sinking in, whereas a dye ink sinks almost directly into your paper. So I do keep a blending brush with a white sponge dauber on the end of it because this is something I would say I do fairly regularly, is use a pigment ink like this. Maybe not through a stencil, but to add color to my page. And I pick that off and I look at it and I'm like, this isn't white enough for me. I need a little bit more. So I decide to grab my alabaster embossing powder. I'm just sprinkling it all over that piece of paper, and I'm just putting the excess back into the jar and putting it away. And then I'm going to use my heat tool to heat up the embossing powder. So embossing is magic, and I wish I would have pulled this up a little bit closer to the camera so you guys could see it, because embossing is magic, guys. Pure magic. Plus it's white, so you don't get to see the melty goodness as well as if it was a different embossing powder. So I'm going to set that off to the side, because if you touch embossing powder that is just melted, there's a good chance it's going to stick to you instead of staying on the paper. So let that stuff dry. Now I have my third 4x4 yellow toned square, and it's a matter of figuring out what in the world I'm going to do. So I go down and I get my little kind of travel-y airplane embellishment box, and I see this really great map print frame. And then I thought I really liked the way that favorites looked on top of that. But these really aren't favorite photos. These are kind of just like the extra photos that I really don't know what to do with, so they're getting slapped on a page together to go in the album. So I decide to find some things that I can layer up on top of this frame. And I was thinking that I would do something to kind of like fill out the frame, kind of like you would do with a cut file, like I would back the frame. And then I decided, you know what? Why don't I make a shaker pocket out of this? Why don't I make a shaker frame and stick it on this layout? Because I don't want to just put patterned paper down, and I've already got two cool things going on these other yellow colored squares, so I might as well do something fun with this one. So I'm going to use some liquid adhesive, and I prefer the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. It dries clear and matte, and that works for me. So I'm just outlining it and putting my tool down, and what I'm doing is just kind of spreading out that adhesive so it grabs more of the material and sticks to the page. Now I'm going to grab some foam strips, and I don't make you watch me put all the foam strips down on to the frame, but that's what I do. I get the foam strips down, and I'm just trying to figure out where I want it to go. I like it there on the corner, so I'm going to pull the backing off of the foam strips. Now, once I get that backing off, I'm going to find a sequin mix that I think will coordinate well enough with this layout. So I am going to dive deep into my stash, and the sequin mix that I find is from Spiegelmom Scraps, and it is called Belle's Ball. Now, I have no idea if this is still available, but it's kind of a yellow and blue and white mix, and it's a nod to Beauty and the Beast. So I go ahead and put a good amount of sequins down into the little mesh area that I have, and of course, I knock the sequins all up into the adhesive area. So it just takes me a minute to fix them so I don't have to be totally worried about it. It takes me more than a minute, you guys, so I cut out a bunch of the times where I'm picking sequins off, dropping it right back on the adhesive, and picking it off again. So I am going to use my grid mat to go ahead and line up where the sequin pocket is going to go. And now that that's on there, the sequins move around pretty great. And now I'm going to place on these two little die cuts. And now this 4x4 square is finished as well. So now I need to figure out what in the world I'm going to do. I was thinking about adding on that Let's Go sticker, but I really didn't like it. I really wanted to use it, so I do find a place on the layout eventually, but it doesn't go on the 4x4s. So now I have my background paper, and I was just referencing the sketch really quick on my phone, and now I'm going to go ahead and get all of these figured out where it's going to go. So I decided to put the clouds on top because, you know, clouds are up in the air, and it made sense to me. This Stickles glitter gel airplane is still wet, so I'm being really careful of putting it together, and I'm working with it while it's wet for one reason. I'm lazy, and I want to get the layout done. Now, I could have just let it sit and dry on its own, or I could have added a heat tool, but, you know, I just left it, and it's just the way it is. So now I'm going to go ahead and get all of these squares placed on the page. And of course, my 4x4 squares, they are not all exactly 4x4. I do obviously mess up the measurements a little bit because nothing is lining up perfectly. But frankly, I'm not exactly worried about it. I am going to trim this top edge a little bit because there is a lot of blue paper showing. So I just trim that down and then I'm okay with it. There's still a little bit of blue paper showing where the photo is, but honestly, you guys, I'm just not concerned with it. So I am going to add a little bit more adhesive down so that it stays. I'm kind of shaking the shaker a little bit to make sure it goes. This is where I realize I cut out an extra thing, and I was thinking about having smaller letters so that my title didn't actually go all the way across this area, and kind of making an embellishment cluster with that grid paper. That goes out the window as soon as I choose my letters though. Like, the thought just completely leaves my head. I grabbed these white big letter stickers, and I got these from my sister-in-law, and they are white and have a glitter effect to them, so you know they're perfect. And I'm just cutting out the letters to spell the word castle because it's been a while since I've done one of these layouts because I was practically finished with the project. But we went to the Castle Air Museum for Christopher's birthday in 2019, so almost 2 years ago now. And it was a great time. And I figure, you know, 2 years ago, I probably should get this project finished. So now I'm just going to turn my layout so that I can get these little bits here. So instead of putting a scalloped kind of border down like it is in the sketch, I'm just going to use two different metallic gold washi tapes. And I'm going with the metallic gold for two reasons. One, I've got those gold glittery airplanes going on. Two, the sequins are sequiny. The sequins are sequiny, you guys. Yeah, the sequins are shining, shimmering, splendid, so let's throw some gold in. Works for me. So now I'm just trying to figure out the spacing of the letters, and I'm like, I really don't have enough room to make a kind of embellishment cluster. And I really don't have a place to put this overlay either. I'm more sad about the overlay than I am about the grid paper, because the grid paper, I could throw that anywhere. But the overlay, I was like really looking forward to using it. And since I didn't, I just decided to leave it on my desk so I could use it for another layout. Now, since my word has 6 letters in it, I am going to use my grid mat to find the center point of my layout, which is the 6-inch mark. And then I'm going to put the S and the T on either side of that 6-inch mark. Now, my letters are not completely and perfectly straight, and I am okay with that. I'm okay with that in general, but I'm especially okay with it because the squares that I have are not completely and perfectly straight either. So when I pulled the letter C off, I actually ripped it in half, so I just got to do a little bit of surgery to get it back together. And then I'm just going to wrap up and finish the rest of the letters. I'm going twangy. The letters here on the layout. And I was not making fun of anyone with a twang. I'm originally from Maryland. My family's all from North Carolina, and whenever I get with them, that twang comes out loud and fierce, guys, like fierce. So anyway, sometimes I guess when I'm just talking, it comes out as well. So yeah, there it is. Interesting because here in California, everyone thinks I have an accent as well, even though I don't really hear an accent from Californians. They think I have an accent, which is weird. So anyway, those are the letters to make the words. And I put that Let's Go sticker, I overlapped that on the C. And then I just decided to put these little wings over here over top of the globe, just because I felt like it needed something. Like it was a little too naked. And then I grab this little orange word sticker that says escape and put it up there on the edge of that cloud, just because I couldn't have that one section be the only one that had no extra embellishment. So there it is, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to join the Scrapping Reflections Facebook group, where we are all sharing the layouts that we are creating. And it's so great to see what everyone's making and to get inspired and just to encourage each other with our crafting. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again real soon for another video.